Many years ago, when I was a teaching pediatrician at a major medical school, I followed 6 young teenagers with juvenile diabetes. Most of them had diabetes since they were toddlers and had responsibly followed strict diets and given themselves injections of insulin since kindergarten. But as they became caught up in the turmoil of adolescence, desperate to be like their peer group, this disease had become a terrible burden, a mark of difference. Youngsters who had been in diabetic control since infancy now rebelled against the authority of their disease as if it were a third parent. They forgot to take their shots, ate whatever the gang ate, and were brought to the emergency room in coma or in shock over and over again. I was frightened. It was frightening and frustrating, dangerous for the youngsters and draining for their parents and the entire pediatric staff. As the associate director of the clinics, this problem was brought to my door, and I decided to try something simple. I formed 2 discussion groups, each consisting of 3 youngsters and the parents of the other 3. Each group met to talk once a week. These groups turned out to be very powerful. Kids who could not talk to their own parents became articulate in expressing their needs and perspectives to the parents of other children. Parents who could not listen to their own children hung on every word of other people's children. And other people's children could hear them when they could not hear their own parents. People, feeling themselves understood for the first time, felt safe enough to cry and found that others cared and could comfort them. People of all ages offered each other insights and support, and behaviors began to change. Parents and their own children began to talk and listen to each other in new ways. We were making great progress in the quality of all the family relationships, and the number of emergency room visits was actually diminishing when the director of the clinics discovered the groups. His indignation was painful. What was I thinking of to overstep the limitations of my expertise in such a blatant way? Was I a psychiatrist? What if one of these people had gotten hurt by something that was said, or had become emotionally disturbed? What would I have done then? Despite the good results, the groups were disbanded. There is still a very narrow conception of what a health provider is. Thinking back on those people and the wisdom, kindness, and understanding they offered each other, I am sad. They were not second-class experts, and having been ill since adolescence, neither was I. Our life experience was as valuable as any credential. I do not think that we will be able to attain health for all until we realize that we are all providers of each other's health and value what we have to offer each other as much as what experts have to offer to us. In the years since, groups such as these have demonstrated beyond question that problems which are not amenable to the most expert medical approaches may be resolved in community by the very people who suffer from them and therefore understand them. In such communities, the concept of woundedness breaks down, and we are all wounded healers of each other. We have earned the wisdom to heal and the ability to care. In a recent talk, Bill Moyers commented that one of the most traditional values of the American way of life, live and let live, can never establish good health for all. Health requires us as individuals and as a people to go a step beyond this, to live and help live. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for listening and reading along as we read the story To Live and Help Live by Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen. What a powerful story. I am amazed each week at how beautiful each of these stories are. Her writing is, in some ways, just very simple and accessible, and yet holds within it deep truths. I think for me, the reflection for this week is, what does it mean to actually listen to someone else? How often do we do that in our everyday? How often do we listen to each other? And to think of these groups that Dr. Remen had put together of adolescents who were suffering from diabetes with parents, not just their parents, but other parents, and to watch the interactions as these adolescents were able to speak for the first time, that parents other than their own could listen and could empathize, and how liberating that was for these adolescents, and how much each of the parents learned themselves. When we have a chance to listen to each other, which is so infrequent, but when we take that opportunity to do that, it can be liberating for ourselves and for the person that we're with. And we can learn something for ourselves and the person that we're with. Yes, there are risks. As we know from the story, her supervisor said that she had to shut those down. And at that moment in time, that was quite sad, and I think it would still be sad even if it existed today. But what I think we learn about it is that there are vulnerabilities, and that we have to be responsible for each other. And I think that is the task that each of us has. Whether we are experts in our field, whether we are doctors or lawyers or whatever we might have done professionally, but to know here that she underscores that it's about you being the expert of your own life. No one can tell you how you feel, how you should feel. It's you who should say that. You can tell us about your own experience in life. No one else can say what that experience is like. And I'm so very moved by this story, that's how we live and that's how we help others live. When we have a chance to enter into conversation with each other, when we're able to share where we feel wounded, right? That's what she says there at the end. The concept of woundedness breaks down, and we are all wounded healers of each other. She actually takes that idea of a wounded healer from a religious leader named Henry Nouwen, religious writer and theologian, who's very powerful and has moved me in many ways. That sense of a wounded healer. We are all wounded healers of each other. And that's what actually makes us good healers for each other, is that each of us can bring our sense of woundedness and be able to somehow heal the other. So that's just a little bit of a thought for today. And I hope that you have a great rest of the day.